What is up, guys? Fahi here from AwesomeTuts.com, and I want us to create a simple game to see how easy it is to create games. And with a couple lines of code, and don't be scared, don't worry, this is going to be very easy to get you in, and you will see what we're going to do. So let us just dive in. I have opened here Unity. I'm going to click on new here to create a new project. Of course, it is going to be a 2D one. I'm going to uncheck enable analytics, and this is going to be guess the number. So guess the number game. And we are going to have a number that we want to guess, typical kids game. So do not worry. When I say kids game, we are also kids. We are kids from the inside. You know, I always say, it's not about how old you are, it's how old you feel. So I'm 15, okay? Moving forward, I am gonna select where I want to save it. I'm gonna go here, let me just find it. It's here, and I'm gonna click open for this folder. And I'm gonna click on create project. So this is where I want to store this that I'm gonna create right now. And don't worry, we are gonna use all of the things available to us from Unity. We are not going to import anything because this is a simple project. Now, here for the free aspect, the first thing that I'm going to do inside of the game tab, I'm going to change it to HD resolution, 1280. Yeah, 1280 by 720. And let's start adding our components because we need to get input from the user in order to get his guess number, to compare it with the guess number that we create. We are gonna go under game object, and then here under UI, we are gonna create an input field. So this is the one that we want. Input field, click on it, and here it is right away. As we can see it, if I zoom in a little bit, here is that enter text input field. But before we do anything, I'm gonna take the canvas. And notice here, this is how big the canvas is. Do not worry about the canvas, and I'm mentioning the canvas now because we will cover that in the course. But just follow along here. I'm going to select the canvas, and here in the inspector, here for the render mode, we are going to change it from screen space overlay to screen space camera. And now we can drag and drop the render camera for which we see the field is currently empty. So I'm going to take the main camera, drag and drop it right here. And this is how we can drag and drop objects from the scene or from the hierarchy inside of these inspector panels. And we will see that also in a second when we drag and drop our input text field. And also we are going to go here for the canvas scaler mode. We are gonna change it from UI scale mode constant pixel size to scale with screen size. And the screen size is our resolution, which we choose here, 1280 by 800. And I'm gonna say 1280 by 720. Why did I say 800? Anyways, I'm gonna click here to match width and height equally. And don't worry, everything that you see here that we did now will be covered in depth. This is just a simple game for us to get started into game development and see how easy it is. I'm gonna select now the input field. So let me just zoom out, select the input field, and select this fifth tool, this little cube shape that you see here at the top left corner. Then when you select it, you will see these blue pins on the corners of this game object, which means that we can drag it like this, we can rearrange it, resize it. I'm gonna make it something like this. And here for its inspector, so when I selected the input field in the inspector panel, I have its position, I have the position Y and X. I'm gonna set it 0 for the X, and let's say 0 for the Y just for the moment. And let me just zoom in a little bit, and I'm gonna click on the drop-down list from the input field, and we have here the text placeholder, which will denote to the user what he needs to enter in the text field. Currently, this placeholder says enter text. I'm simply gonna type here, enter your guess. And I'm doing this in the inspector. You have this text script, and notice this like a little input field. Here you can type and automatically you see it changes here. Now it is a little bit small, so we don't see it. Let's fix that. Going downwards in the inspector panel, here we have some other properties such as the font size, so I can resize it like this. Also the alignment, and I can align it at the middle. So like this right here at the middle. And let me set it 50, actually 60. Oh, 60 we can, so it is a little bit too big. Let's say 50 and we are good to go. 55 is also good. And I set 60, but the text now is too big for the placeholder. We need to resize a little bit more as we did right now, but actually I'm gonna resize the whole input field and now it is visible. And this right here, I press Command S to save the scene. By the way, let me right click here in the assets and create a new folder, which I'm gonna name scenes. And also notice how big the folder is right here in the project folder. So right here at the bottom left or bottom right corner of the project folder, you have this little slider that you can drag and it will determine the size of the folders. So I like to keep my folders like this. And let me hold Command and press S. On Windows is Control S and select here the scenes folder, and I'm gonna type gameplay and hit enter. What I just did is I saved the scene. If we go here in the scenes folder, you see this Unity icon and named gameplay. This is the current scene that we are in, which contains this enter your guess text. And you can also go under here, file, and then click on save scene, so on and so forth. It's the same thing. And you see the shortcut for it here. Don't worry, we will cover scenes in depth and see what they are. How can we navigate from one scene to another? Just don't worry. This all will be covered in depth. So now that I have saved the scene and we added here our input field, I'm also going to take the text and I'm going to resize it because this is the text that is going to be displayed when the user types. But we will leave that actually when we start typing something in. I'm going to also select the canvas right here. So I have selected the canvas in the hierarchy. I'm going to right click on it, go under UI and click here on text. This will create a text UI component and put it here in the scene. You can also go under game object, UI, and click on text. It will automatically be created. And it is right here. This is where the text is. It is a little bit small. If I zoom in, here it is. This is that text. And let us make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to take the tool to resize it. Something like this will do, or even a little bit larger like this. Position it at 0 for the X. Align it in the middle. And I'm gonna resize its font. And also I'm gonna change its color. So here for the text component, when you select it and you go in the inspector, and I talked about inspector, this is where we see the properties or the tools and the components attached on a game object. So this is a text component, so we see its text script, and here we have a couple of options, of course, such as the font size that we saw. We can change the text here. I can say, guess a number between 0 and 100. Since we typed this and our font is too big to keep this all in, we need to resize the font a little bit. And also I'm going to resize the text. Let me just see how this looks like in the game. This is visible. I'm also, as I said, I'm going to select the text, go here in the inspector, select its color, which is right here. You see the color property. You can click on this right here, or you can click on this tool, however it's called, and you can change the color like this. This is like in Photoshop or any other programmer, you can edit text. So I'm gonna put it at white. Why? Well, because if we go here, notice the color of our background is currently blue. We can change that if we select the main camera, and notice here for the background, it says camera, we have clear flags, and below it we have background. I'm gonna select that background, and let's say if I set it to dark, this is how it's gonna look like. I like it like this because it is gonna make our game a little bit scary, you know, scary guess numbers. Anyways, this is our info text, which I'm gonna call info text. At the moment, it is telling to the user guess a number between 0 and 100, but when we start to play our game, it is going to give info to the user if the number that he has inputted is larger or lower, or if it's equal to the guess number. We also need a button, which we are going to use to guess the number. So selecting the canvas, right clicking on it, I am going to go under UI and I'm going to select a button. And here it is. Let me just go in the scene, select the second tool from the top left corner and second tool from going from the left. And then we can reposition this tool or this object wherever we want. So I'm going to position a little bit here, but before that, I'm going to resize it, something like this. Position at 0 for the X. It can be at negative 162 for the Y. And I'm going to click on the drop-down list from the button, select the text component, which is here. Currently it has button written in it. I'm simply gonna type guess and resize it just so that the user will know what to do. So when we click on guess, we are good to go. If I run the game by hitting, you see these three buttons here. We have the play, pause, and this is like rewind button. So when you hit the play button, this is gonna run your game. And it is automatically gonna bring you here in the game view. Even if we are not in the game view, notice I'm currently in the scene view. If I hit play, it is gonna bring me in the game view. And if I click on the guess, you see the button's like blinking a little bit, denoting that we are touching the button. But when we press the button, nothing happens. The reason for it is because we did not program anything to happen. So I'm gonna right click here in the project and create a new folder, which I'm gonna call scripts. And inside of this folder, I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna create a new C# script, which I'm gonna call guess the number game. Of course, this is the name of our script, which will depend on its functionality, but this is a simple game with a couple of lines of code, so I'm gonna name it guess the number game. And we will see later on in the course what our classes, what our scripts. Do not worry about that. I'm gonna double click on it and it is gonna open in MonoDevelop right here. Let me quickly just tag the class by typing here class. This is called a comment, these 2 backslashes and then class. We will also learn about them, do not worry. Moving forward, here we need a couple of variables. Variables are those that we use to manipulate in order to create or control the workflow of our program. So what do we need? We need to get ourselves this input field because we need to get the text that the user puts in it. We need to get from it. And also here we have the info text that is going to display information to the user. So we need all of that. In order to get these, we need to go in our script or class right here. And we need to type here above the class below this using Unity Engine. We need to type using Unity Engine.UI. And this is needed in order for us to work with the UI elements such as the input field and the info text. And we will see, of course, later on in the course in more detail about this Unity Engine UI, about the UI components and whatnot. So what we need is we need ourselves a reference to the input field. So I'm going to say here public input field, and I'm going to call it simply input. And we also need the text. So I'm going to say public text. I'm going to call it info text. We set them here to be public because now if we go here in Unity, in order for us to get our reference to these, we need to attach this script on a game object. I'm going to right click in the hierarchy and click here create empty. You can also go under game object right here and then click on create empty. And here is an empty game object. I'm going to click on it to rename it. I'm going to name it game controller. So game controller. And now in order for us to use this script, in order to control the game, we need to drag and drop it right here. So drag it from the scripts folder on the game controller or simply drag it here in the inspector panel where you have selected the game controller. And here it is. You can also click on add component and then filter for the script here, type guess, and here it is. You can also click on it again and here it is, but we added 2. We only need 1. So I'm going to click on this gear icon right here and remove that component. As I already mentioned, we declare this input field as a public and this text as a public. So now when we attach this script on a game object in the scene, these fields right here are visible. Notice here we have the input, we have the info text. Before that, if I simply comment them out, we are not going to see them right here. Notice they are going to disappear because comments are not counted as code. And we will see that later on, but I just wanted to show you that. So we set them to be public and now they are visible here inside of Inspector. And don't worry, we will talk about public, about private, what that is, so on and so forth. So we need the input and the info text. We can simply now drag it from the hierarchy and put it right here. This is the input field and I'm going to drag the info text and I'm going to put it right here. So we have the input field, we have the info text. And we are good to go to code our game because now they are in their positions in these slots and we can use them inside of our code because this input field right here that we typed in the code is now referring to this input field right here. Same goes for the text right here. So I need two variables which are going to be private. And as I said, don't worry, we will talk about public, we will talk about private later in the course. We need an integer, which is a whole number, and this is going to be guess number. And I'm going to say like this just to declare it. And we also need a private int user's guess. This guess number is going to be the guess number that we randomly create. And we are going to do that inside of this start function. And this start function is inherited from mono behavior. And we will talk about inheritance also, but I'm just telling you why it is here. Because it is, or it comes from this mono behavior. And as I said, we will explain that in the course. So now we're going to take this guess number and we are going to put it to be equal to the random value between 0 and 100. So here I'm going to type guess number is equal to random dot range, and we need to put the minimum and the maximum. So the minimum is 0, the maximum is 100, as I already mentioned, because this number needs to be a random number between 0 and 100. And now I'm going to remove this public void update and I'm going to create here public void. So it needs to be like this, public void check guess, open close parentheses, open close curly bracket. This is the function that is going to be executed. So the code that we put here will be executed when we press this button. And here what we want to do, we want to take the user's guess. So we are going to say here user's guess is equal to, and we're going to get that from the input field. So we're simply going to say input.text and we're good to go. But one problem that we have here, if I go now, we will see we have cannot implicitly convert type string to an integer. We will cover later on in the course what is a string, what is an integer and whatnot, but what we need to do, this input text is a string, which is a character variable. And we are trying to put a character inside of an integer, which is a number variable. So we need to convert the characters into number. And for that, we use int.parse. And then inside of these parentheses, we put this input.text, which will make this problem right here go away. Essentially, when the user types anything inside of this input field, it is counted as a character variable. But we need a number variable, and that's why we are simply converting it by using int parse. Moving forward, now we are going to check if user's guess is equal to, and we typed two equal signs, which means we are testing if this number is equal to the guess number, which is our own guess number, this one right here that we have created. So if the input from the user is equal to the guess number, the user won. So we're going to say info.text is equal to, and in quotes like this, so open one quote, close quote, we are going to say you guessed the number. You are a wizard, my friend. You are a wizard. This is going to denote that the user has won. Next, what we are going to check if the number is lower or greater than the guess number. So else if user's guess is greater than the guess number, then we are going to tell to the user that his number is greater. And for that, we can simply copy this line of code right here and we can paste it. And instead of this text right here, we're going to remove it and we're going to say your guess. So your number is greater than the guess number. This will tell to the user that the input or the number he put in is greater than the number that we are asking. For example, we have the random number 20. The user puts in 50. So the number is greater. Try a smaller number until you guess correctly. And else if user's guess is lower than the guess number, then we are going to say your guess is lower. Simply copy this right here, paste it, and instead of greater, we're simply going to say lower. So your number is lower than the guess number. Let's test it out because this right here will work, even though we will need to do a couple more changes. But if I go now in Unity, and in order for us to make this work, we need to attach this function on the button. And it goes like this. Select the button right here in the hierarchy. In the inspector panel, go down, so scroll down, and here for the button component, right here, you have this on click. Currently says list is empty. At the bottom right corner of that, you have this plus sign. Click on it, and now you see this empty field, which means that we can drag and drop this game controller into that field. So drag and drop the game controller from the scene right here, from the hierarchy, and make sure that before that, this guess the number script is attached on this game controller. So again, going here, simply drag it and release it right here. Right, left click on it, drag it and release it here. And here on this drop down list where it says no function, you're going to click on that. And now we are going to select this guess the number game, which is the name of our script. And we're going to select check guess right here from the list. Check guess is this function right here, which has this code, meaning that when we press our button now, this code will be executed. So if we go here and if I try, so if I run the game, notice when I click here to enter an input, notice when I type, notice the text is right here. We don't even see it. It's small. Let's fix that. This is what I was talking about. And I said, let's leave it until we need it. So going in the input field, taking the text, I am gonna set the size to 60, same as for the placeholder text. So size at 60 for the font size and align it at the middle. So if I hit the run button now, I'm going to type here, let's say, for example, 50. And if I try to guess, notice your number is greater than the guess number. And if I try to type 40, guess, your number is greater. Okay, let's say 20, guess, number greater. Let's try 10. Guess, you are a number wizard. I mean, what to say else? I am a number wizard. I just am. But notice here, this leaves right here, this number that we entered is right here, and we don't want that. So how can we change it? Well, if we go here, when we check all of these guesses, we get the input from the user, check all of the guesses. At the bottom, we can simply say input.text is equal to simply these quotes, which is an empty string which will remove our previous input so that the user does not need to click on the input, delete the number that he has previously put it in, and then put a new number in. So he does not need to do that. If I hit the run button now, go here and I type 40, notice if I click guess, your number is lower, but the number is gone now. Okay, it's lower. Let's try 70. Click on guess, your number is greater. Let's try 50. Guess, lower, 60 maybe, lower, 65, greater. 63, it must be. Number is lower than 64, I mean. Yes, I am a number wizard. Anyways, this is the game. It's really simple, I know, but it's a really cool game to get us started. This is a simple for kids game. Any kid will play this. I mean, he will go nuts. He will be like, yo, you are really a wizard. You created this. So we can brag to kids. Anyways, this is our game. Just a simple one so that we can jump into Unity, see what we can do with it with just a couple of lines of code. And when we create our more complex games, we will understand all of this. What is an input field? What is a text, an integer? This guess the number. And notice every single time this guess the number will have a different value. Let me show you that. If I go here, hit the run button, and if I try 50 and click on guess, your number is greater. Okay, 25, your number is greater. 15, your number is lower. 20 maybe? Let's see, 20, lower, 23, again lower, then it's 24. You guessed, you are a number wizard. So it was 24 now. If I rerun the game again and click here 24, your number is lower. It's not 24 again. There is a chance that it will be 24 2 times in a row, but it's like 1 in 100. Because every single time we run a new game, this is gonna have a new value. Anyways, guys, this was just to get us into Unity, see how we can use a couple of lines of code to create our very own first game. And next, we will see how we can create more complex games, dive deeper into coding, and understand all of this right here that we did. Fahi here from AwesomeTuts.com, and I will catch you guys in the next video.